Okay, let's think about two more terms for you. DBMS, and then we'll put an R in front of that, or DBMS. Okay, so what are these all about? Okay, we know DB is short for database. Okay, S usually in computing means system or security or software, something like this. In this case, it means an S, and then M means management. Okay, so DBMS, the system for managing our databases. Okay, so if you look at the relevant document webpage in Moodle, okay, just some notes here which I'll just talk through. Hopefully it'll be a little bit clearer for you at the end. Okay, so a DBMS management system. Okay, we need to be able to set up our database, set up our tables and our fields in our tables, and to connect all of these tables together in a particular way. For example, to relate student group, module name, class type, lecture name, and location when you're actually scheduling a class. Okay, for Wednesday at 6 or whatever. Okay, so we've got our database. Sorry, that's our database structure there. All those tables and fields, and then we've got the records inside those tables. Okay, that's our data. So a good DBMS will make a nice job of managing both of those. Okay, so an example of a database management system is MySQL. Okay, and we're going to use a particular type of MySQL tool called PHPMyAdmin. Okay, which we'll look at shortly. And then, as I said before, SQL is a programming language. Okay, so what PHPMyAdmin, as I said earlier, you can sort of just point and click and do stuff. So there's a graphical user interface. Okay, so it makes it a bit easier to use rather than just typing code all the time, SQL code. Okay, so a good DBS should have good database, good data management. Okay, so the data can be stored, tables and fields. So it should be easy enough to create tables. It should be easy, intuitive enough to create fields as well, and it should be intuitive enough to actually insert data in. So we'll become well up to speed with this shortly. Okay, so that's the data, and then we've got the, if you like, the information about the structure of our tables. Okay, that's called metadata, which is the data about the data, if you like. Okay, so for example, these are clickable. Different data types. Okay, so this is one of the MySQL home pages. Okay, so we can see we've got all these different data types which I mentioned in the previous video. Okay, so numeric, date and time, string data types. We can have spatial as well. Okay, so we'll kind of explore those as we need them. Okay, let's not kind of get too heavy about them at the start. Okay, see this diagram here. Okay, this is from PHPMyAdmin, which we'll look at shortly. So what I'm trying to do here is, if you notice up here, here's the server, the IP address for the server. This is on XAMPP because that is 127.0.0.1. That is the local host value. Okay, now we're going to use PHPMyAdmin on our MySQL 0x web server. So the interface will look like this. Okay, so we've got a particular database name, and then if you can see the capital T there, that means TABLE. There's a table there. So I'm inside some table, and what I want to do is I want to set up a field name here. Okay, so I'm giving it here a name, test underscore date, and I want to pick the default as date. But I'm just going to go scroll down here to decimal. Okay, so these are all of the different data types we can have. Okay, vast majority of them we won't use at all, particularly at this level, but we'll use the most common ones: varchar, date, int, decimal, date time, and timestamp. It can be very useful when you insert a record. You want to know what date and time it was actually inserted at. Okay, so we'll come back to that. So that's how easy it is to manage all of that. Okay, so database name, table name, how many tables, and then this thing here looks a bit strange, but essentially the engine here refers to how easy it is to connect the tables together. Okay, so we're going to use InnoDB. Don't worry about this at all. Just you're going to see that in the SQL code. Okay, PKFK, K for key, P for primary, F for foreign. Okay, as I said earlier, for example, trying to schedule a time, a class, a lecture, a room, a course, a lecture, a class type at a particular time. You're pulling information from lots of different tables in your database. Okay, so we need to relate all these together, and we do that by having a unique index for each record in each table, and that's called a primary key. Okay, so typically if you have a table called customer, you will have a field called customer underscore ID. You could have two John Smiths. How do we distinguish between them? We let our database management system automatically generate a unique primary key value for each customer. Okay, so if your database table already has 1,000 customers and we get a new customer, okay, the customer ID is going to be automatically generated as 1001. Okay, so all the DBMS is doing, all that PHPMyAdmin is going to be doing there is going to be finding what is the biggest ID value so far generated. It's going to add one automatically to it. Okay, so it's going to automatically increment the value of the customer ID of the existing biggest one by 1. Okay, so each new record gets an automatically incremented primary key value like that. Okay, and then if you're linking to it, for example, in house cell, you want to put in a comment. A particular customer wants to put in a comment about a product. In the comment table, you were going to use the primary key from the product to link to that, and you're going to use the primary key from customer to link to that as well. So, in other words, each comment has to be made by a customer about a particular product. Okay, I've just talked about auto increment. Null or not null. Okay, there must always be a primary key value generated when you're inserting a record. Okay, so that means not null. Null, on the other hand, means, for example, sometimes somebody has maybe 3 parts to their address, somebody else has only 2 parts. So you might let the third address field be null. Okay, in other words, it doesn't have to be entered. It's not obligatory. Okay, and is it easy to see all this metadata? That is stored in a data dictionary. Okay, so I'll just click on the link here for PHPMyAdmin. Now, sorry, excuse me. Okay, where are we here? Here we are in a database called inventory. Okay, and I've got 3 tables in here. If I click on the data dictionary, I can see the information here about, here's the PC table. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, sorry, 4 fields in here, okay, our columns, our properties, our attributes. Okay, the data type for PCID is int and up to 3 characters, okay, so up to 3 digits, so 999 is the largest value that can be stored in here. Can we have a null value? No, we can't, okay, so that means we're going to automatically generate that. And then you can see down here, the primary key is PCID. Okay, and then the next table down here, this time we're using a primary key made up of 2 other fields. Don't worry about that too much. And then we've got room. Room name is a primary key here, and that's not null. Okay, so notice primary keys are never null. They always have to be something. Always has to be something entered into them. Okay, now that's grand. A great DBS makes it really handy to work with, but you know, you still can't bait just the thinking the thing out logically. Okay, how do you want to connect all of your things of interest in your database? That's very, very important. Okay, so how do you want your data structured? You think about that in advance. And we'll certainly be having chats about that over the next few weeks in terms of your project. Okay, what I'm going to get you to do is in the kind of medium short term is I'm going to get you to build the house cell, okay, client server website, And as you're doing that, hopefully you'll be thinking about, you know, how is all the data connected? How's a database? How do I insert a record into a database? How do I update into the database? How do I delete a record from the database table? How do I see all the records? How do I select? Okay, so House Cell will get you up to speed and all that. Okay, and then we've got this word relational. Okay, we just added on in front of DBMS. Okay, and this is all about how do we relate the tables to each other. Okay, and remember the tables are the things of interest. So how do we relate, you know, a class being on at Wednesday at 6? How do I relate that to lecture? Okay, the class being on at 6 uses the primary key of the lecturer. Okay, lecturer underscore ID. It's also going to use a student group underscore ID. It's also going to use the room underscore ID. So these are all primary keys in those tables. Okay, in the lecture table, in the class table, in the room table. Okay, and we use them inside the, if you like, the schedule table, the Wednesday at 6 table. Let me put it that way. And they become foreign keys in that sort of link table where all these relationships are coming together. Okay, so we have to be able to relate the tables to each other. Okay, so we're going to try and think logically, and that means thinking about the relationships between the data. So here's an example here. Okay, actually it's not particularly relevant here, but this is just a table here. Okay, in fact, this is actually from XAMPP. These are databases here, and then inside PC details, I've got two tables in here, labs and PC. Okay, so here's the primary key for PCs, PC ID, and you can see these are all numbers. These are ints. There is always something in there, so they're not null. And then the PC names are here: manufacturer, operating system. Okay, now, one of the key things in building a database is that you should never have the same information in twice. So you can see here, Windows 7 tells you how old this is, Windows 7 in here, Windows 7 in here. So really, the operating system should have, these are things of interest of their own. They should have a table of their own, and then Windows 7 would have would be one record in there, and you'd use the primary key of the operating system table as a foreign key in here. Okay, if that's completely bamboozling you, don't worry about it. We'll come back to it. Okay, so, okay, what are the things of interest? Another fancy word for that is entity. Okay, anything about which data is to be collected. Okay, anything about which data is to be collected in the database. Okay, lectures, student groups, students, course names, subject names, class type, and so on. Okay, so an entity translates into a table. Okay, an entity is a thing of interest. Each thing of interest should have a table. If you think about, say, people's addresses, you know, are you going to type in County Louth into 500 of your customers? You're probably not. Okay, best to have the counties in a table of their own, where you just have Louth in once, and then you use the primary key for Louth, county underscore ID, from the county table as a foreign key, then in say student table for county address, something like that. Okay, so table, another way to think about it is we've got columns, fields, and rows records, sometimes called tuples, not used very often. Okay, so fields and records in a table. Each record is an instance of a thing of interest. Okay, for example, that particular student, another student, another student, and so on. Okay, so a field is a property or an attribute of an entity, of a thing of interest. And then various attributes or entities there. Okay, I'm going to stop here because I need to talk about primary key and relationships. That's going to be very, very important.